What's that?
Statistics.
No, you don't love statistics and numbers?
No, I actually like statistics is the only math course I really took a lot of because you need it for like psychology programs and so you read papers good.
Mm-hmm.
Always really bad at it. There just something about it just wasn't especially like tea tables. Fuck those guys, man. Hate them. Hate them. Hate it.
Well, if only your stats professor could see you now, because I think you've done a bang-up job.
Well, I would argue it wasn't the stats professor that'd be proud of me. It was the like intro to like computer science, where literally all we did was spreadsheets the entire time. And I actually got a C in that class because I just didn't want to go to class. So
Yeah.
I forgot there was attendance. Whoops.
Well,
anyway,
Caitie's done all this work, so you don't have to, folks.
Yes. So today we are finally going over all of the data that we got from you guys for ranking characters. We got a lot, so we're actually going to split this up into 2 episodes. One for Mass Effect, one's for Dragon Age. We're doing Dragon Age today because I was the one doing the number crunching, and I get to choose what I want first.
That's fair.
Yeah. It was also like, it was the first on the Google form.
Yeah.
So to just kind of quickly explain what all was going on in the background. So we got I should pull up the actual form. It doesn't matter. It was like 325. It was something like that. It was a little over 300 responses that we got. People were able to vote on a scale of 1 to 7, pretty much everything we did. Which one person had a critique that we should have added a 0 because there was a couple characters we did rank 0, and I think that's a fair critique, and I just didn't think about it. So sorry about that. There were a couple errors in data collecting. I'm not gonna say all the characters, but it was very specifically only the ones in like the Dragon Age Origins DLC that nobody cared about. That like something happened in like the Raiden portion, and like it only gave back to me like the first couple sentences on a couple responses. So if you wrote a lot during them, I'm really sorry. There was a couple of people that like the first sentence looked like it was about to come up with like a real good joke and then it just cut off. So I'm very sorry. All your hard work has been lost.
No payoff.
I'm sure it was very funny. Pretty much, probably my favorite comment that we got for this entire thing. Oh, I should also say that I, put everything into a spreadsheet and like a Google Doc for easy readability for Jordan, because apparently you can't share like Google Forms responses, and also Google was having a tough time handling that much information. So the actual document for everyone's like written responses is 171 pages.
Good God.
So it's a lot. And a fun fact, 70 of that is actually just Inquisition.
Wow.
Yeah. But my favorite comment was about Sigrin. And it says, "Zebra was wronged. Fight me, Jordan."
Zebra was wrong.
Zebra was wrong. Fight me, Jordan. There was so many, like, I guess Google doesn't spell check or something when on the forum, because there was a lot of people struggling, and it was great, by the way. I loved I can't spell at all, so some of these comments are amazing because of it.
My favorite comment of all was Jordan was right. Be mad, hoes.
Also about Sigrin.
Yes. That's my favorite comment. That person deserves it. That person should be fan of the year. We should bring back that fan of the year award. Give it to whoever said that.
Wait, bring it back. What happened? Who is the person?
You don't remember fucking Sci-Fi Guys? Fucking 324, whatever his fucking name was? He said that the show name sucked. We put this on one of the episodes where we read out people's comments on the show.
Yeah.
And he was like, the show sucks or whatever. And he had a bunch of suggestions where I'm like, your fucking name suggestions suck. And then like 2 comments down, we read that he said he admired that we stuck with the name. And I'm like, all right, I'm back on board. Sci-Fi Guy, fan of the year.
I have like no memory of that until you just said that.
Yeah, so bring back the fan of the year award and give it to whoever said that I'm right about that.
What if it was the same guy?
2-time repeat. This guy's the fucking Michael Jordan of kissing my ass. I fucking like it. This guy's a perennial all-star. I love it.
Oh my god. Okay, well let's just go over like the numbers portion of this,
Yeah.
because I think that's going to tell us who we should talk about. So, the characters that let's just do like the top 5 characters that the audience felt we wronged. Number 1 is Zevran.
Justice for Zevran.
Then it was Iron Bull, Fenris, Meryl, and then Isabella. Now I would say that like at least 2 of these characters were ones that you hated and ranked low.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Okay. Which one of us did these people dirty?
Yeah, I totally did Meryl dirty. That one's my fault. I think we both did Iron Bull dirty, and then you were definitely Zevran and Fenris. And Isabella, someone had a really good comment. They actually commented a couple times, which thank you for doing that, because in the midst of all this data, all those like repeating comments helped me see it.
Mm-hmm.
They pointed out something that we did, which is I kind of forgot we did it. But when we did the Dragon Age 2 episode, we thought, okay, you know, Isabella, like she has a really cool story in the comic books, but we probably shouldn't really factor her in as the game because that makes sense. But in the previous episode for Dragon Age Origins, we did factor in the extra material to our rankings.
Oh, did we? Were we a tad inconsistent with our methodology there?
We were a little bit inconsistent with that. So, and like there were kind of hints that like we kind of did it for some Inquisition characters as well, specifically with Cole and Asunder. So I think like rather than going and like re-ranking all of the characters that we use some extra material for, we just redo Isabella and see if that gives us a better area. Because now that I'm thinking about it, like we definitely did do that, and I think Isabella would have been ranked higher if we were counting the comics.
I do think that's fair, and I do think that we gave ourselves a bit of a safety net by saying, like, this episode was always sort of planned as, like, our review of the whole series, and then we had the great idea of saying, let's let people weigh in, and now I think people weighing in is actually more kind of the point, but I think now is the time if we want to, I don't necessarily know if we do it right now the second, but we should reshuffle things that, you know, ratings that we would like to change that we made.
Mm-hmm. I say we just go ahead and do it right now because we're talking about it.
For Isabella, you mean?
Yeah, Isabella.
Let's see. What did we give her? I gave her a 4 on character overall, a 3 on romance.
What did I give her?
You gave her a 4 for character. You gave her a 3 for romance. 3 for playability. I gave her a 4, and then we both gave her a 3 on execution. God, that is low.
Because we were really just thinking about the game. I will say like a couple of the comments, looking at the comics here. A lot of people talked about her boobs. Like my particular favorite was, she's not the most unique character ever, but she does have those titties. So I can't rank her super low for that reason. And like there was a couple like that. So apparently they would suggest that we rank her by her cup size.
I just want I'm trying to find the comment. How'd they spell it? Did they spell it with an A in titties, or did they spell it normal?
No, it's it's a space in between every letter. It's TIDDIES.
Well, at least they went with the D's. I take points off of it for not using the TITTAY, but good on you.
I didn't know you're so picky about how you spell titty.
when people are basically being fools about it, yeah, I prefer that they have stupid spellings.
Okay, that's fair. Oh God. So the comments of that I noticed for Isabella, at least, most people were talking about how it was kind of 2 camps. You romanced her and you liked her. She betrayed her, bring her to the Aeroshock, and I guess the third camp I'm just saying is like she's cool with the comics added to the backstory. So, which I agree, yeah. I guess for those who haven't read the comics, the comics, Those Who Sleep, well, there's a couple of them. We actually did a whole episode on the comics, actually, didn't we?
We did. And we love them, yeah, so.
Yeah, I guess I'm not going to waffle on too much about it because you can just go watch that. But for the most part, it just like goes into a backstory of like why she had the book, like why she like was how she was, and then going into like I guess like how like her identity as a person, because Isabella isn't her real name. It was Ryson. No, what was it? It was something like no, Naishi. It was like Naishi.
Yeah.
That's her real name, and she took a new name, and she kind of like there was like some tension of like that's kind of what the Canary do. Should she be Canary? Is she gonna find comfort in that? Blah 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 blah. And that was so much more interesting than anything that happened to her in Dragon Age 2. Because really in Dragon Age 2, she's like, what if I talk about boobs a lot? And then there was like kind of that interesting bit during the second act. And then she kind of went, you know, if you go just the pure friendship route, there was some like nice moments of her kind of like opening up and like feeling comfortable with friendship in general and like deeper relationships. Especially if you do like the romance. So yeah, I guess if we go into the where Isabella, if we factor in the comics, I don't think I would really put it up that much. Like I think I would still put like I put a 4. I guess I would go a 5.
For what for character overall?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably about right. So the audience gave her like a 5, basically.
Yeah.
For character overall. I agree with everything you just said about her character. I think just in general, the amount of depth and not even the depth, but just the space of time that she has to grow in the comics as a person, and the jokiness is like, it's not like she's not funny, but the jokiness isn't like this incessant beat that they're trying to hit. It's actually about her as a person, and I quite enjoyed that. So, what did I do? I gave her a 4 as well on character overall. Yeah, if I'm including the comics, I'll go up to a 5 also.
Okay.
I see you're updating it on the sheet. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And we're bolding the changes.
Not much is going to change, so I'm going to do that manually. But we'll figure it out. I'm not going to change the romance score because I don't think the comics really affects the romance in the game. Or the playability, but I think then the execution.
I can't believe we gave her a 3. I like honestly, I would have to go back and listen because I'm probably about to contradict a bunch of shit that I just said. But I don't think it's a 3. I do think. Let me see. This is just going purely off of memory because it's not like I've listened to these things in a while. But I assume I probably harped on like more the dialogue writing than the acting. I think some of that dialogue probably it just doesn't come off as well now. But I think that really the 3 does not represent how good of a job the acting is. So I'm willing to go up to at least a 4 for this.
Okay, that's still lower than the average. The average is 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to a 5, but I'll go to a 4.
Do I want to keep my 3 or not? I guess I think her actress is fine, but I'm just not like wowed by it. You know? But yeah, 3 goes into the bad category. Like it like goes into the less good, and 4 is kind of just in the middle. Man, I really want to know why we did a 3, because I feel like there's probably. Oh, you know what? It was probably the sexualization bit that drove me nuts.
Yeah, because we include character the
design.
Character physical design, yeah.
Yeah, give her pants. I'm keeping a 3.
Oh, wow. She's staying at a 3. No pants, Isabella.
Staying at 3. Yeah, no, it was she yeah, I think I have a vague memory of this now. Morgan almost feels like she's sexy because like she dressed to be sexy somewhat. Like there's argument there. But Isabella was just like designed by a dude. You know what I mean?
I don't think Morgan dressed to be. I know what you mean, but I don't know if Morgan necessarily dressed. We talked about this, I think, on the episode where it's like she doesn't care, right? Like she was raised in a fucking swamp by her mom. Like she's just wearing basic like sort of rag clothing because who cares? Like she doesn't have she didn't grow up having to think about how people would care how much she's covered up, so she just doesn't care more than. And maybe she's not naive anymore. There's probably an element of her that understands that it can be used to her advantage as a leverage thing. But I would say that Isabella definitely uses her attire and her sexuality to her advantage. She's trying to do it all the time, basically. But yeah, no pants, Isabella. All right, staying at a 3.
I'm looking at the Isabella comments, seeing there's anything I really want to read out. There was one that I think talked about the romance, because we did rank the romance pretty low. And so the comment is, how dare you rank Isabella's romance so low? She's the only good romance option in Dragon Age 2, in my opinion. She actually has positive character growth as you work through her issues with trust, and unlike Anders, she makes the right decision in the end if you friend or romance her. She brings back the Tome of Kazun. Anders bombs a chantry. I feel like the fact her romance is less traditional is oddly looked down upon by both of you. So, and then she kind of goes on a little bit how it's interesting, but like some of the other aspects of Isabella. But I just assumed this person was a she because I think everyone that likes Dragon Age is just a she. Sorry, dudes out there.
There is a decided slant. We've talked about this before in the demographics of the
Yeah.
Dragon Age community, so that's definitely a thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's fair. That I guess I don't like open relationships personally, so that does factor in to the rating a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think it makes they make a good comment that Isabella does have positive growth, unlike some of the other characters. Like Fenris is still pretty moody. Meryl can break the mirror, but you need to specifically go to the Rivalmance route, and like even then she's kind of, I don't know, that goes into my issues with Meryl. And then yeah, Anders explodes the chantry. So yeah, Isabella's kind of the only one that like makes mistakes and goes, you know what? I shouldn't do that. And it doesn't really matter if you rival her or not. As long as you have some sort of relationship with her, she decides to come back.
I don't want to sit here and like bash Isabella, and I think you're 100% right when you describe this person's comment as being fair. And they're right. We were looking down upon it by the fact that it's less traditional. We weren't hiding the ball on that one. We said that openly. It's a subjective rating. It's not meant to be a judgment of anything. Certainly, 100,000% not a judgment of anybody's real life thing. That's not what that was. That was just. We're subjectively commenting on a fictional character. So I think we were totally upfront about the fact that we had a bias there. And that's why the audience rating is so cool. Because people can give us their opinion. I will say though, on the topic of her having a change, she does change. And she is different in that respect than the other characters who sort of have their oopsies, who do some bad, you know. I know he blew up a fucking church.
Exploding, and then go, whoops.
Perhaps that was not exactly copacetic. Meryl's whole village gets killed. Her whole village, her whole whatever gets killed. Everybody over there.
Whoops.
No, but like, there is sort of a difference a little bit in those examples. And I'm not trying to bash Isabella, and I'm not trying to like make excuses for say Anders or Meryl or things like that. But those are mistakes of being misguided or naive, and don't get me wrong, again, I'm not sugarcoating it. It's not okay to be naive in a way that's dangerous. It's not okay to be Anders is really suffering. But that's not an excuse for turning malicious towards like blowing stuff up. I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying like that factors into the rationale. Isabella's mistake is a conscious, not naive, fully knowing act of greed, essentially, of self-interest. Like, there's no, like, oh, she's kind of, like, naive about something that she's messing with that's powerful, like Meryl, or, like, she's a misguided sort of, like, whatever. Like, she thinks that maybe what she's doing is good. She knows that what she's doing is out and out selfish and self-interested, and she's like, oh, fuck it, I don't care if we're in a romance. Like, I'm doing me. And then she regrets it, which I think is probably, those two things are related. But the thing with Isabella is that I think it rubs people so much harder because it's a knowing, brazen act of self-interest that completely disregards any feelings between the player character and Isabella. That being said, I think it's a good call out to say that she changes. I think that's a really good point to make.
Yeah. I'm not changing my score anymore, but yeah, I agree. So, okay. I think next on the list we would be probably hanged if we didn't talk about some of the comments from Zevran, because he is the most wronged according to the viewers. Between our scores, between what we did and what the audience did, there was at least like. I should say how I calculated this scoring system out. So me and Jordan both had a score between 1 and 7 for each characters, and then between each category, and then I added both of those together, and that was one score. And then for everybody, they also had their score. I averaged it out between like each little category, and then I added that and then times it by 2, so it would also be doubled like ours was, and then I took the difference between them. And then Zevran had the largest difference of 11 points. So
yeah,
let's go through some of these comments. Let's scroll through 100 pages.
Give me all of that. I want it all. I want all the smoke. Give it to me.
There was a lot of people just saying Zevran was wrong. Like, that was the entire comment. There was also a lot of people saying that you were completely right. Probably my favorite version of that is most likely to be #MeToo'd.
Holy shit.
So, I say there was actually kind of a good mix of people defending and like jamming how much they don't like Zevran. So we're gonna start with people who didn't like Zevran, and we'll go to the people that do.
Yeah, let's start with the people who are right.
One person I think had a really good reason is the really slutty foreign assassin is just in their archetype that I really don't like anymore because it's so overdone. Literally all his personality is trying to be suave and having sex. It's not great and it really gets on my nerves. I think he would have fit more in later games, but with everyone in Origins having a really serious personality, he was the odd one out, and not in a good way. He could not take anything seriously and was constantly flirting with just push me off. I would argue that they forgot about Ogren. Because he's like the two of them are definitely goofy characters. Zevran at least has serious moments. I don't think Ogren has as many of those, but I do get where they're coming from. You know,
Alistair is not a super serious or whatever. If that's exact super serious character. I mean, he has a real serious like issue, like backstory and things. But Alistair is also very often comedic relief.
That's fair, but I think it works because he does have those serious moments. Whereas Zevran, like, you really have to dig in there to get those moments.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with the comments about how it becomes, like, it's grating to have him flirt constantly and, like, insert, like, sort of blunt innuendo into everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, there were some bolder comments here. Oh, someone, I also have to come into the VA defense. I get why you said the Puss in Boots thing, but the fact is many people from Spain do speak like this. The accent does have some over-the-top moments, but it really isn't too abnormal for I think it's pronounced Iberian Spanish accent. So, like, that, I'm not good with accents, but, like, I can't, like, I don't know if this is considered insensitive or not. I can't imagine going to a town where everyone is Puss in Boots, you know? Like, I don't. Like, is that really real?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's what they were going for. I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't think the voice actor was necessarily doing that. But that's an interesting point. I mean, if your ear is just more accustomed to hearing that person probably didn't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. I do wonder if the voice actor, like, it was the inspiration Puss in Boots, or was it like
an Iberian Spanish village.
Yeah, or like maybe they like knew someone, maybe his wife. I don't even know. I don't know the guy. Like has that accent. Honestly, I think the Puss in Boots is just too convenient because it's another flirty assassin with a Spanish accent that's like almost identical. Like it's too on the nose for me not to think that was the inspiration, and that's why it's like ruined for me.
Yeah.
There was another comment where some person was like, well, I didn't grow up in the 90s and early 2000s, so it didn't bother me. And that thing just more bothered me because I realized that we have like child listeners, but they're not child listeners because I'm in my 30s now. So that's
yeah.
That messed with me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's fine.
I'm not doing right with the age thing.
Nobody is. Can we talk about this for 2 seconds? Because I have a PSA announcement that I would like to make for millennials. Just fucking get old already, okay? Stop hanging on. Stop making these cringy TikToks where you're mad at Zoomers.
Oh, I heard about that.
And your fucking hair part and your fucking listen. We're not cool anymore, and let's just be honest. Most of us never were. Shut the fuck up and get old.
Yeah, for people for people who don't know TikTok, or for people who don't whatever, and I'm not even on TikTok. There's some YouTubers I watch that talk about it. I guess there's like millennials on TikTok that are upset with the Zoomers, if you will, talking about like they call yoga pants flared leggings, or like the Zoomers prefer middle parts over side parts. like the stupidest stuff, you know, like they're pants. Who cares?
And none of it matters. Like here's honestly what it is. It's the millennials who, God, this is gonna sound so mean. I'm sorry if it sounds mean, but we all know that this is true. It's like if you're getting older and you're by definition sort of not as cool as you were, and you don't have a family or a career or a long-term relationship or some sort of permanency, you haven't traded it for anything. The idea is you get less cool, but your life gets more stable and successful. If that's not happening, you're going to be kind of salty.
I get that, because in a lot of ways, millennials had a lot of the short end of the stick. And so now that the coolness is gone, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, well,
when I say coolness, I think mean youth.
It's time to grow the fuck up. Like we're all fucking
hashtag adulting.
We're all fucking Peter Pans over here. We're the generation that vehemently refuses to grow up, and now it's like, oh, now we're sad because we're in our 30s. It's like, it's not like people didn't try to tell us about this. And I'm not judging. Yeah. Believe me, I'm talking about myself too. But it's just like, it's not like people didn't warn us about this.
I heard a really good argument, I guess, in favor of the millennials, that like the reason these people are reacting like this is that we are the generation that grew up on the internet. Any space on the internet was for us. It was fair game. We could understand it. And suddenly TikTok is like one of the very first like internet places where like you're the odd man. You're the old weirdo on TikTok. You're 30 on TikTok. What the hell are you doing over there? Like, and you're making like these try hard what are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing with yourself? And so like that almost self-awareness kind of brings out this wanting to fight over things of like, I belong here, you know. It's almost like that like a Harry Potter meme of like the kid is like, last year I got 35 presents and this year I only got 34.
The entire internet used to be for me, and now one thing isn't.
I'm mad about it, because like for years, like our generation was invading children's spaces, like Club Penguin and all that.
Sure.
Like that was for kids, you know. We just went in there and was like, but what if we tried to say cuss words? You know, like it was our playground, and now it's not anymore. It's the Zoomers.
First of all, this topic is so much better than Dragon Age. I love it.
Yeah, sorry, we gotta go back to data.
Wait, hold on. I just want to say this other last thing too, which is like, you're 100% right about how like it is TikTok in a big way, but I would also harken back to my initial premise, which is like, I felt it less so, but it was still there at like, I don't know, 24, 25 with Vine.
Yeah.
Like Vine, I enjoyed Vine, but it wasn't, I could already tell like, some of this is not funny, but people younger than me think it's hilarious. I could already kind of feel that creeping in. I felt it a little bit with Snapchat as well, which to me is just like the people who are getting slapped in the face with this realization now are the people who were most sort of, they had their head in the sand for a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. My only argument with Snapchat is that at least with Snapchat, if you had other friends that were your age doing it, like you can at least, like, I think Snapchat's a little bit more private, where like Vine and TikTok is a lot more open. So you have more people mocking you when you're the 30-year-old doing some sort of crazy TikTok dance. That's kind of awkward and cringy, actually. But
I still like Snapchat because it's one of the only places where you can actually see what your friends are up to. Like,
yeah, it's also a lot easier to like send a photo. Like, you know, I have a bunch of my friends there, and I got one that's like, oh, here's a pic of my kid. They like, it's done quickly. Where other, like, you know, do text messages a lot slower. This very off topic now.
It's fun. Anyway, we can go back to Dragon Age now.
Okay, trying to tie this back in. We were kind of in the middle of talking about Zevran though. Crap. If we didn't just interrupt the Zevran talk, I would have a really good tie-in, but we're gonna have to keep going with Zevran.
Do you want to just jump to Cole so we can talk about how I'm too old to understand him? Is that what it is?
No, it was actually Ogren.
Okay, no. So do we have anything? So we don't want to say anything else about Zevran. Do we want to change scores?
I'm not changing my score because I think I judged him fairly. It's your score that really brought it lower. But I at least want to read out one comment that is very positive on Zevran, that I think maybe will give his backstory a little bit more explanation. Okay, so it says, I think Zevran gets a bad rap, understandably so, but I think his motivations for joining the Warden are the most interesting out of all the Origins crew. Think about it. Is someone implied that he was tired of his life with the Crows and so accepted the contract on the Warden in a possibility, albeit subconscious, attempt to end it? Nobody else would take the contract because they knew they wouldn't stand a chance, and yet he dove at it head first. And when when spared by the warden initially, he realizes that this isn't all there. This isn't all there is, and perhaps he can live more. His romance is also interesting. At first, like you guys, it came off as cliche and somewhat flat. But I think when you come into account the crows and the fact that he's generally loyal to your warden from the get-go, and then isn't quite sure how to express this in a meaningful way, read the earring, it becomes a really nice mutual respect sort of thing. I also think that how you feel about Zevran can depend heavily on the origin you chose. I think the nobles have less of a reason to pity him than, say, a city elf who may have far more empathy for a somewhat narrow and harsh upbringing.
You know what? Here's my overall. I think that's a fantastic comment. I don't think that what that person is saying is wrong per se at all. Here is what I think is most interesting about Zevran, and who knows, maybe about a lot of characters that I ranked low, but specifically Zevran. There's another comment in here that, I guess this is the bottom of the comment where it says, "That being said, Jordan, you personally attacked my horny playthroughs." You personally attacked my horny playthroughs through Zevran, and I don't like the fact that I have to think deep about what that says about me now. That's a tongue-in-cheek comment, I get that, but it's also kind of true. And to me, I think the real distinction is, like, for the people who have, like the comment you just read about Zevran, I'm good on that. Like, through that lens, I'm totally good on Zevran. I think that person's exactly right. I think I did attack the horny playthroughs through Zevran, and I think that's sort of what I was critiquing about the character, is that there's an element of him that is very easily the character is too easily read as shallow, because in my opinion the character is kind of shallow. But if someone has like a more insightful reading of him, I don't know. I think that's what makes fiction and character critique so interesting, is that if the character legitimately means something to you and you've really thought it through, then that character sort of is better for you. Like, it's not an objective thing one way or another. So,
I'm going to say this in a tongue-in-cheek way because I don't know how else to say it. What you got against the hornies? The horny people? Like, what? Because I mean, to be fair, like I think I did a little bit of the same, because that's also like not my personality. I don't think it's yours either. But I'm putting you on the spot because we were talking about you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything against the hornies. I've done horny playthroughs. Like, everybody does horny playthroughs. Like, I think it's...
Yeah, I've done them too.
I think it's great. I do think that it's funny, it's interesting as a premise, that the Bioware community is very fucking horny, man. They want to fuck everything. Like, they just want to fuck everything. And I just think that it's kind of funny. I don't know. Like, I think that initially, romance, quote-unquote, romance options in games were a stretch feature around choice and consequence in dialogue. It was as simple as, in an RPG, you should be able to talk to people, you should have dialogue choices, they should react differently to those dialogue choices, and then something like an approval system was born from that. You could have characters that approved of you or disapproved you. They became your friends, quote-unquote. And then someone said, like, well, what if you could have more than a friendship? Like, what if there was an option to flirt and sort of... And that was like, oh, this demonstrates how creatively the writers are approaching choice and dialogue choices. That's really cool that those branches exist. And that's kind of that was my only interest in it, going back to like KOTOR and things like that. It's not to say that they haven't told good stories, because they have, but it's taken on this weird life of its own where the joke 10 or 15 years ago was press A for sex or whatever. But the attitudes around it have kind of become like that. Like, I understand some of it's a joke and people don't really mean it, but the attitude does kind of feel like it is a little bit of like press A to bang or whatever.
Yeah. To actually add on that, reading some of the comments, specifically for Solus, there were actually a lot of people who very specifically didn't like the Solus romance because you could not bang. Which I thought was an odd choice, because I think it's fine without it. I actually think it works better without it. But because you could not press X for bang, it suddenly like lost something, you know?
Can I say something sort of crude about Solus?
Of course.
I think was so mean.
Oh no, here we go.
I think every single one of Solus's ex-girlfriends was with him for the conversation. Like, that's my read on Solus. Like, every single one of Solus's exes is like, he's not the best, but he's really smart. I like talking to him. I don't think Solus is interesting for like. I understand people want to project like he's like this. He must be like this elven sex god or whatever. Like I bet you.
Oh my god!
I bet you he's lame in bed. Like I like that's my read on him. Like I think he's boring. I think this dude is lame.
It's like vanilla, lights off, eyes closed. There's a sheet in between, like
with the hole cut out. He's like, the elven pantheon does not approve. We can't look at each other.
Carnal pleasure brings you farther away from the fade, Banon.
We can only do it once, and then I have to break up and go ruin everything. I'm sorry if that like ruins people's fantasy. Like I just think like what is the appeal of Solus except for the fact that like he's this tortured, well, I don't know, tortured, but like he's this conflicted soul. He's got this grand mission that sort of prevents him from really being able to have a relationship with someone. Like there's a ton of interesting things about him from that story standpoint, but not the, I don't know. That's my read on him.
I gotta completely agree because there is. Jordan, the amount of smut fics where he is like this dominant sex god who rippling chest muscles and like just crazy stuff. You're like this guy, this fool spends all day indoors reading. Like he doesn't have abs. What are you talking about? It does not work.
This motherfucker puts his hands behind his back when he talks. Do you know what I mean? Like that's
like. Now, I think a lot of that is also in some of the flirting lines are very sexual at the very beginning, but I feel like he's the type of guy that like has that front, but like when you go further than that, he's like, oh fuck, I've never gotten this far.
Yeah, that's shit like that. He's a big brain. He's verbal. Like he can talk the talk, but like. That guy don't deadlift. Like, come on, man. He doesn't have any power in his lower body. Get out of here with this shit.
You know the best part is that there's going to be people in these comments writing us, like, large things about how we're wrong about Solus's sex.
Just fucking slamming the keyboard like, he does deadlift, bro, okay?
Have you seen his thighs?
300% body weight, bro. You can't do that, Jordan.
Actually, sex is more mental than physical.
That's what it is. People coming in with the defense of Solus.
Well, he can actually bring you into the fade and then do like some crazy bullshit, man. You don't even know.
You have no idea how useful a bald head can be. I'll just leave it at that. It's like, wait, what? Hold on. Wait. Go back. Say that part again. They're just walking away.
You know.
It's like, no, we don't know.
God. Did you see? Okay, we're this episode's all over the place. But did you see Matthew Goldman retweeted a like edit of the actual photo was honest to God Solus sucking on a titty, but someone photoshopped it where the titty was also the top of Solus's head, so he was like sucking on the top of his head
as a titty.
As a titty, and he retweeted it.
Oh Lord!
So the is he the producer? What is he now? I think he replaced Laidlaw. I don't remember what he does now. But someone very high up in the Dragon Age ranking dev team like retweeted Solus sucking on Solus titty. So that was an event. Anyway, let's talk about this data because it actually is interesting. Okay. Before I do want to talk about Iron Bull, but I kind of want to talk about some other things that I just thought were interesting, like comment wise.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hates Sigrin.
Oh wait,
like, everybody hates Sigrin.
Not to preempt the Sigrin thing, but one more thing on the chart where we have with the differences, the top 5 as far as differences between ours and theirs. Would you like to apologize to Meryl now?
Oh no, not at all.
No, I mean I'm not going to change my Severance score, so I can't talk. But I just wanted to double check.
Let's go over the Meryl because when I was reading the comments, okay, there are some people like Severin and Bull where the comments really came for us and was like, guys, don't even. And then there were some where the comments were like, well, I agree with you guys, but I just like her.
Yeah.
And Meryl was kind of one of those. Like, there was a good mix of people that were uncomfortable or didn't like her, and then people that really liked her. Like, no one really, like, said, like, Caitie, how could you say these things? They're just kind of like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a lot of those were like that. I think the only people that, like, really or not, or as a group, like I think there was someone that came for us for everyone, but as a group, the only one that people really disagree with was Zephyr and Iron Bull. And that was kind of it. Like there were other people doing it, but those two were the strongest. But yeah, for Oghren, like everybody hated. Like I tried to like highlight some of the comments that were like different from our opinions. And I struggled to find a positive one for Oghren.
Yeah.
And probably the best one I found was, where is it? Okay, here we go. Nope, that one's bad too. Which one was it? Did I find one? Oh, this one actually is good. Like, this one's a negative one. This is like, I don't know what they were going for, but to characterize an actual fart.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, the middle of the chart. Like, if you look at the difference chart and you see, like, Zevran and Iron Bull at the bottom, to me, what's really interesting, and I didn't expect to, like, it's the middle. Like, where did we in the audience almost perfectly agree? And it's, like, Shale. That's such an interesting, but Oghren is in there very close as well. Like, the audience pretty much agreed with us on Oghren. Pretty much.
Yeah, Shale was 0.1 difference between our two scores, which is basically the same.
Like, universal agreement that Shale is fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, here is the positive, minus one person that said I like him or something, is this comment. You did my boy dirty. Awakening undid a chunk of his character development, but you separated them so he's safe. The man is the laughingstock of Orzammar. He went from one of Orzammar's finest warriors and the husband of a paragon to being unable to carry arms and abandoned by his house. The warden finds him a broken wreck of a man and becomes his first proper friend in years. He feels like an actual friend to your warden, and while the game after Orzammar leans too heavily on him being comic relief, it doesn't always land. I admit I'm making a terrible case, but the man just worked for me. I love that his companion quest is being a wingman to help him get over his ex. In a game with so much doom and gloom, it feels the most like an Inquisition loyalty quest. I love that in a series where the dwarves aren't typically drunken fighters, that he's the exception of how they would react to a typical fantasy dwarf. There's a bit more, but it kind of, that's the gist of it. Like, I get what they're saying, but I think I see most of those things as negatives where they see as positives. So,
yeah.
I think, like, the thing I vehemently disagree with is Awakening undid a chunk of his character development. Like, maybe it did a little bit, but Awakening did so much better for Oghren than Origins that, like, I don't care. So.
Also, like, to say that it undid his character development, circumstances around which his personality was supposed to hinge in like, that changed as far as, like, the situation with his wife and stuff like that. Like, that was different on paper, but he still acted the same, basically. And I think that's kind of what we were harping on, was that, like, he was just sort of this static persona, even if things were changing, even if the circumstances around him were changing. But I'm glad somebody stuck up for him.
Mm-hmm. See, other highlights of the comments. Another good one was one of the very first comments we got from Morgan was, I think y'all overrated her a tad, preceded by no one else giving her, maybe like one other person gave her a negative response.
Yeah.
And if you go to the actual raw data of it, let's scroll up to Morgan here. She had, in the rankings, like, almost completely 7s. Like, it's or a 6. Like, no one gave her romance a 0. Only one person for each category of character playability and execution gave her a 1. And, like, the scores are in the single digits for everything up until a 5 and above, where it gets into, like, the hundreds. Like, maybe we overrated her with the 7, and maybe she'd been a 6 in some, but, like, almost everybody agreed that she was a 7.
Yeah, it's so I mean, if you're talking about this from a data standpoint and you have almost 300 respondents, like, you're never going to be able to average a 7 because that's a perfect score. That's basically impossible. But the fact that her averages are over 6.5 or just at about 6 across the board is pretty remarkable. She has, like, a super majority. It's like 2/3 of people who thought that she was a 7 across the board.
Yeah. And, like, I decided for average because I think that's more accurate. But if we just went by who voted the most, she would be a 7.
Yeah.
Because that was the most in each category.
She's number 1, right?
So,
like, I don't know if we've said that explicitly yet, but, like, she was number 1 on our ranking, and she's number 1 on the average score for the audience.
Mm-hmm. Yep, maybe you think she was overrated, but literally nobody else did. Well, maybe, like, one other person, but, like,
the one person that gave her a 1.
Yeah, it was, which might have actually been the same person. I'm just gonna go scroll through here and see, like, what's good. Most people agreed with, like, Sten or some good comments. Thank you to the 21 people that had some variation of good boy for dog. Like,
yeah,
like, some people, like, that's all they put. He's a good boy. Like, okay,
he is.
I guess that's. I mean, yeah. Probably the best comment, because I never thought about it this way, and it just makes so much sense that I have adopted it into my headcanon, was about Anders, and it's like a short comment. So they're talking about the like, why is Anders in Awakening so different than Anders in Dragon Age 2? And, like, I think we even theorized that it was about, like, you know, he's possessed by justice and whatnot. Their explanation is a character with bipolar in a manic episode. I grew up with a bipolar parent, so that really hit home for me. It was, like, that makes so much sense that Anders is in a manic episode, and, like, the writer has come to, saying that, like, Anders was kind of based on someone who was bipolar. And so it just fits so well that I just love this comment. And, like, that perfectly, like, it just works for me. And actually on the same, was it Anders? I don't know if the comment's actually in the Dragon Age 2 Anders or in the Awakening Anders, but someone else says that, like, he hits different if you have a mood disorder, because there's something there that, like, resonates with them. So I just love this comment so much, because I had never thought about it that way. And, like, that's the difference, and not so much that, like, he's possessed. It's just he has this issue, and it, like, you just saw him in one aspect of that.
First of all, that's not at all a bad read. I think that's actually a very interesting take on Anders. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I appreciate that take. I guess I never thought of it either, and it doesn't conflict necessarily with the idea that that it's actually the spirit of justice. Like, I guess I always read that in a very sort of on the nose. What's the word I'm looking for? It's thematic, but it's also archetypal, where he is possessed by the spirit of justice. I mean, literally, it's 100% fantasy writing that's totally on the nose. Mm-hmm. So when you think about someone who becomes possessed by an idea, you should, no matter what the ideal is, you shouldn't let it possess you. Right? Like, I feel like I'm explaining the most obvious thing, but, like, they played that in my mind as directly as you possibly could. If you get possessed by an idea, even if it's the most noble of concepts, eventually it ends up corrupting you, and you kind of end up corrupting it. And that's exactly what happens with spirits in Dragon Age. So I always view that as just like a very classic sort of thematic approach, but the lens of, having it be something where it's a bipolar character. I mean, those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but
yeah. Which on the spirit thing, there was another comment that I wanted to address. It's like they bleeped it out for some reason. Anyway, I fucking hate that he approves if Hawke gives Fenris to Daenerys. It's in conflict with Anders' own sympathies, and it is in a ridiculous amount of conflict with an Anders who is harboring a spirit of justice in his whole self. Poorly done. Not that I 100% disagree, but I think that, so when this happens, it's Act 3. Anders, I don't think it's justice anymore. It's vengeance at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it makes sense that Anders, who's a very vengeful person now, like literally possessed by vengeance, would be okay that the man that was like so against mages and like, he basically like they hate each other. He wants to turn the mages. He's all for the Templars. Be taken back in by a mage to be a slave. That works in like a vengeful spirit. Like, you think about this for mages, why don't you deal with it now? Like, if he was still possessed by justice, yes, that would be wrong, but he's not anymore. It's vengeance.
Yeah.
So it like from a character perspective, like I think it makes sense. At the same time, it's like, whoa, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, but we know he's a radical guy because he blows up a fucking chantry.
Well, yeah, there is that.
So I think it actually kind of makes sense. Like it's terrible. Which the comments were so polarizing on Anders. Like people either hated him or loved him. Like very few people were in between. And I think that at least speaks to like how much like good of a character he is. There was actually a really good comment on someone who's flip-flopped on Anders that I actually would like to read out. Is this super long? It might be super long. Oh, it is kind of super long. Okay, I'll try to like. They wrote a very nice long message that like made a lot of sense, and I'm gonna try to butcher it just in the sake of time. But this person says that they first played Dragon Age 2 when they were 15 years old, and they loved Anders, and like they were really all about his message and whatnot. But as they like, kind of grew up and really thought about him, it like kind of like soured on him a bit because they find a lot of his views and the way he interacts kind of like borderline. They say abusive and they say sorry and it's a loaded term, but they're not a native speaker. And they try to explain that like he really forces his worldview upon you, and if you're not with him, you are the devil. Like you are horrible for not believing like he does. No matter what it is. And he felt that, which is kind of I would say manipulative is maybe a better word, but like I can see how like that would flip on it. And then like to go on to say that like the romance stuff is kind of but anyway, so I think I do wonder how many people, and like I know people that like Anders that are like in the older demographic, and like that's fine. I'm not trying to like shame you for liking Anders, but like I do wonder like if we also had added in like data for like what is your age, what would that separation be?
God,
would younger people like Anders?
That filter would have been so incredible to have demographics on it. Like that would have been really interesting.
Google Forms would have not been able to handle that, but like would have been really cool to have.
Yeah,
yeah.
Just on Anders, I want to say like on that comment, I think that that's the correct read of Anders, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that person is actually, they're very aware of their own progression, and that's I would say that that's exactly what Anders is really meant to be, and he is manipulative. I think a couple of other people sort of use that word to describe him as well, and it's 100% correct. I think this makes him a fantastic character, even though it makes him more wrong, quote unquote. It's brilliant to have characters like that can be very endearing and likable, and that you want to like from a personality standpoint, but also they've got some serious issues. I mean, that's how characters should be written. And I think that person has exactly the right read of Anders in that sense.
Yeah. Now I kind of want to transition to serious topics, into like things that I thought were really funny in the comments.
Oh.
One of my favorite ones. Well, there's two favorites. One is about Talis. That was actually the very first comment we had on her. Holy shit, I heard y'all's podcast before playing Mark of the Assassin, and I went into this expecting to hate her. Guys, she's up there with Shale, and one of my favorite characters in this series. I have also never seen Felicia Day in anything, is what they preview that as.
Wow. Consider yourself lucky.
Here's the thing. A lot of people...
I feel so bad, because I think Felicia Day is like a really nice person.
Oh, no.
She seems incredibly nice.
Yeah, a lot of the comments were like, I liked Felicia Day in this, or I like Felicia Day, or she seems nice, but I hated this. Like, I think most people said that she really just read like an insert character, and it was like not really a character themselves. Like, it really just felt like Felicia Day. Like, it just, it didn't feel like a Talis.
Yeah, I watched her stream a little bit of Cyberpunk, and I'm just like, holy fuck, she's like wholesome as fuck. She seems like such a good person. I'm kind of bad that I don't like her performance in this, but I'm sure she's a very nice person, but I still don't like the performance.
Another good comment was from Sigrin. Most people liked her, but I think the majority consistent can be best summed up in this: the best of a mediocre lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. But probably The comment that made me laugh the hardest was from Volana. She reminds me of my wife, so I gotta love her.
So I gotta love her. That's great.
Bro, who is your wife?
That's great.
And like followed by 100 comments saying, why is she so angry at the time? Oh God, you just...
that is honestly that is one of the best comments in this entire 171 pages. Like, that is a great comment, because do you ever think that sometimes, like, you deal with someone who you think is just awful, and then you find out they're married, and you go, somebody loves them, right? Or maybe loved, or I don't know what, but like somebody thought they were the best thing ever at one point.
Yeah, I don't get it. I've been watching all the show Hoarders, and I feel like every time I watch Hoarders, I'm like, why would you stay in this relationship? You can't even live in your house. You're in a tent in the backyard. And this dude doesn't want to throw away his poop sacks.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about, man?
Your bed is surrounded by like G.I. Joes covered in cat hair. Like, this is not
This is not the life for you.
Real quick. There's one comment on Anders. I think this is the comment. It just says arse biscuit.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of good.
That's the comment.
Yeah.
Arse biscuit. All right.
Yeah. A lot of people hated Carver. Most of these comments are about hating Carver. But then all of Bethany's comments are saying how boring she is. So it's like you either hate Carver or you find Bethany boring. And there's some people that say she's nice, but some say she's too nice. Varric's date I think was also interesting because let me double check before I say this. Yeah, I'm not as strong as Morgan because I also don't think as many people voted for the Dragon Age 2 cast as they did Origins, but for just the character, and actually execution is the same. Only one person voted for him like in 3 or below. Everyone else was 4 or above.
Wait, say that again?
For character and execution, only one person put a 1, 2, or a 3 on each category. Like,
interesting.
Everyone else really loved. Like, everybody loves Varric. It's surprisingly like we said that too, but everybody loves Varric.
He's hard to hate. Yeah, like that's an incredible concept, really.
Someone, I don't know if it's in, I don't know where it specifically is, but someone was saying that if Morrigan is the face of Dragon Age, Varric is the voice of Dragon Age.
That's
like,
a
great
what? Comment. Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a very good one. Now we have barely talked about Inquisition's comments. Let's get into this. I think Sarah has a comment that I want to read out. Hold on.
Oh yeah. I'm sure people are ready to come at me for Sarah and Cole and.
Yeah, the Cole one. We'll get to Cole because there's something I want to talk about with Cole. God, there's just so much here. Okay. So this person's saying that they love Sarah and like they're kind of just going off of that. But they stick at the end there. Also, her dialect is a real thing and not a young people thing. Sometimes you two come off as very American.
That's because we are.
I mean, yeah, like what? Have you left the U.S.?
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, no, and so like it also like,
yeah,
and when we've done streams with our friends from other places and countries, like we've had to explain to them what a fucking biscuit is, like an American biscuit, or like explain to them what country gravy is. Like other people are very not American, and that's okay. But of course we're very American. That's what we are.
Yeah. So there was another good comment. It was super long, and so I unfortunately had to like cut it out. But there was this one person who had a funny story about Sarah, where they don't speak English like natively, and when they had just like got a certification that they could like teach English pretty well, and then they started playing Inquisition and got to Sarah, was like, what the fuck is this woman saying?
Right. Well,
I feel
the British invented English. Americans just perfected it. I'm joking. That was a joke, everybody. I will back away from that comment. I also think it should be advertisement and aluminium. I think you guys are right about that. It should be advertisement. Man. It should be advertisement.
I don't have strong feelings on it, but aluminum.
It's how it's spelled. It's IUM. It should be aluminium.
I don't know. It's in, it's in
advertisement makes no sense. We're barbarians for saying advertisement, honestly.
Let's talk about Cole real quick. Okay, so there was a couple people that kind of had this variation of an opinion, and like it's kind of hard to pin it down. But this person goes on to say, my only quibble with him is the more human equals sexual now thing in Trespasser. As someone on the A spectrum, it kind of hurt to feel like they were equating me with being less human, and I feel like that's not it at all. So keep in mind that Cole was also written by the Solace Writer. The Solace Writer takes brings us out there, and has said this in interviews. Like the Solace believes that spirits are people too. They're just different types of people. You know, it's so like you can't take in a game of like fantasy settings where human is a race and not necessarily like, you know, in our language, in reality, like saying you're unhuman is like equating you to a robot or a thing or an animal, where in like the fantasy setting, like, oh, well, you could also be an elf or a dwarf or a spirit. Like there's other equatable things. Yes. So you can't have that take necessarily because you're in a fantasy setting. They're not, the writer was not trying to say that you are less of a person if you don't have sexual feelings. It's just more like, as a spirit, Cole didn't have those urges because he was 100% just compassion. That's all he was as a spirit. And when he became human, he started to have those feelings because he got other aspects, unlike a spirit has. So it's not that. I would even look to Josephine, where like Josephine I think could be read really either way, but could also be read in the A spectrum, where like she is human and like is a person, and like it never had like sexuality isn't really brought up with her. Like it's completely different. So I can understand how that could be read like that, but I don't think that's where the intent was, and I don't think you should read it like that. I don't know. That's my opinion.
That's a remarkably interesting comment, and I really thank that person for leaving that comment because it's so rife with opportunity for discussion. I also don't think that's the most accurate read of it. I'm not to make that person feel wrong. I would just ask them to maybe reconsider some of what they've said and what we're saying. But I think it's a tremendous comment as far as giving us something to talk about. So I have two thoughts on that. Number one, I think your description and your sort of reporting on what the writer has said is 100% correct, right? That especially in fantasy and science fiction, personhood, rather than saying human or not human, personhood becomes this broad thing where exactly to what you described, which is that a spirit is really still a person. They're just a different type of person, one that's not physical and sort of in their body. I have my little bones to pick with that in science fiction and fantasy because I think it's a more interesting moral conundrum to say that there are people like characters that actually don't have full purpose. This is my thing about robots, that it's a more interesting moral conundrum. But I'm not the one who makes the rules for Dragon Age. In Dragon Age, it's pretty well established that at least, well, maybe not a rule, but there are lots of well-informed, smart characters like Solus who think that spirits are people. So I think that is, and in that sense, I would almost ask this person, do you think that that's actually maybe sort of a validation of you, actually, rather than invalidating you, that it validates that you could be a type of person who's just different in that way and isn't motivated by those drives. That perhaps it's actually a validation in that sense. But also just to like the core root of like their statement, it's like Cole is what, like a 17-year-old young man?
No,
is he older than that?
It's like early 20s, like maybe 20.
Okay, well, same concept applies. Like homeboy's got urges. Like if he's sort of split between this state of like spirit and physical, and he moves more towards the physical. I mean, for the vast majority of people, I understand it's not everyone, but for the vast majority, it's biology, man. Like that is one of the strongest drives that human beings have. It sort of stands to reason, and if anything, it's kind of interesting that they didn't pull that punch because they could have conveniently ignored it.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I don't like the romance between Cole and Meriden because, like, to me, Cole really is, like, so Cole, the spirit, we don't know how old he is. Cole, the boy that is dead, we're around 20. But Cole, as, like, the unity of the spirit and this guy's, like, memories is, like, maybe 5 years, and I think has kind of the maturity somewhat around, like, maybe, you know, a teenager. And so, like, I feel like the age, there's, like, almost an age gap, kind of, technically, and, like, that weirds me. I don't know how to describe this, but
he's naive.
He's naive, yeah, and you know Meriden isn't, because, like, it's, you know, she went after Sarah. If you go after Sarah, you probably know some shit, you know, like, so, yeah, it's just kind of a pairing I'm not, like, super thrilled. Creme Meriden superiority, but, so yeah, I think before... another just fun fact. Ogren had 69 votes. I just thought that was funny.
Nice.
I just wanted to say that. Nice. Before... I do want to kind of end this on talking about Iron Bull, but I'm trying to think, is there anything else we want to, like, bring up? We did get a fair amount of comments from people who, at least in the comment, identified as a gay man, who... actually didn't like Dorian. They thought he was too I probably should scroll down to get, like, what the wording was, but they thought it was too, like, cliche, like the backstory with the father and whatnot, and that he was too kind of, like, the stereotype for it, which I can, you know, I could see where they're coming from, because I think on surface value, like, he really does come off as, like, your sassy gay friend with you know, parental issues. Someone also had a good comment of, like, in Dragon Age, actually in Inquisition, there is a codex entry that describes that, like, homosexuality is treated as a quirk of character, and it's not actually sinful for the Chantry. So Dorian's story arc, they really had to, like, work, like, it's Dorian's dad isn't mad that he's gay. Dorian's dad is mad that he won't marry a woman and settle down. That way they can continue on breeding, bring children into the line. And that's where he's angry. So it's all, like, it is kind of about his, like, attraction to men, but it also kind of isn't. Like, if he was actually attracted to women, but just didn't want to marry this girl, probably would have had the same reaction. Maybe. So it does, like, people kind of felt it was forced to, like, have this parallel with the real world. Which I can kind of actually see that point of view. And I do think, like, and even Gator has admitted that a lot of Dorian's backstory and, like, that thing was more, like, personal to him. It was kind of about, like, himself. So, like, I think that's where that's coming from. And so, like, even though maybe it doesn't, like, click with the world, I think there is some earnestness in there of, like, this is kind of what Gator... like this is his fantasy character, you know what I mean? So, like, I as someone who's not a gay man, obviously, I kind of almost want to give it a pass, but, like, something I want to put out there. There are gay men out there who do not give it a pass, and we're quite annoyed by it.
Yeah, I think I think that's really valuable that you mentioned that. I think that's a really important voice to have in there, and I imagine there are gay men who feel that way broadly about representations in media. I think that the main thing driving our score about Dorian was not anything having to do with his sexuality. We just really like him. He's a cool character. He's a cool guy, no matter what his sexuality is. Again, for the first time playing Inquisition, I've done this, like, almost every Bioware game ever. I had a female Inquisitor, and I'm like, maybe I'll romance this guy. Like, I had no idea until, whatever, like, at least a couple of hours into it. He's just a cool character. But those comments are really valuable, and I'm glad that those people put their 2 cents in and their perspective on it, for sure.
I know that you're not attracted to men, so, like, you wouldn't get it, but, like, Dorian appears on the screen, and I'm just thinking, like, oh, yeah, you don't bat for my team, that's fine. I know.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you're exactly right? Like, if I'm playing a female character, it's like, that's not really, I did it because Alex Wilson Reagan's the voice, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like I could empathize fully with that player character.
Weirdly enough, we'd, like, Dorian and Severin and Iron Bull had a lot of people that talked about their own sexuality in regards to the character. Sarah had, like, none of that. I can, as I'm scrolling through Sarah, I cannot even find one that I might have missed of, like, someone who identified as a lesbian or really any, like, non-straight sexuality, like talk about her. Like everyone else was just talking about like she doesn't make sense. She's kind of messy, but I like her, and the people that didn't like her because she's problematic for various reasons.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's.
There's a comment about Shale that I want to mention that I thought was very interesting that stood out to me. So it says, I so want Shale to come back at some point. Shale is very much like HK-47. HK-47 is an assassin droid character from KOTOR, if you don't know. Shale is very HK-47 is the character that talks about meat bags and how you should just kill. It's this super homicidal droid that hangs out with you, and so they say Shale is very much like HK-47, and that she's just a bundle of traits strung together. But I love both of those characters so much. I don't necessarily agree that Shale is just a bundle of traits strung together. I think that's an incredibly insightful comparison to make, because on the surface, I think that that's true. That when you talk to Shale is just sort of like this. Yeah, it's just like they said, like a bundle of like sarcasm and sort of like deflection, and it's kind of hard to get to Shale's backstory, and like an aloofness. That is, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone else make that comparison, but that is a completely accurate comparison on the surface. But I do think that Shale has a depth when you finally get underneath that HK does not. And that I guess is maybe the distinction that I would make, is that Shale's backstory and sort of what motivates her ultimately is that's actually correct. But I don't know if I've ever heard anyone make that surface level comparison, and I'm like, holy shit, that's actually a very accurate side by side.
I also want to end on Bull, because people kind of like Zevran apparently wronged him, mixed up I agree with you.
Yeah, second most difference, but we were both in agreement on Iron Bull.
Yes. So there's actually I'm not going to read out the comment, but like one person actually came out to defend his Reaver thing, and that like all you have to do is really fiddle with the settings and they'll turn okay. Look, I don't like reading settings. I think the game should just work out of box. Yeah. Maybe you're right, but like that's not how I play games. So, but I get it.
That's also not the audience they're really targeting with the AI, right? Like I would almost buy that argument more in Origins. Like there are people who will do unusual, like sort of difficult character builds in PoE, like Pillars of Eternity or Divinity or Pathfinder Kingmaker. Like, there's an audience out there who wants to do that, but it really feels like by the time we're at Inquisition, that's no longer the audience Bioware is even aiming at from a gameplay standpoint.
So, hold on, what did we rank Iron Bull's anything? Okay, Iron Bull, we both ranked his romance a 2. So this person comes out to defend the romance. There was actually, this is a segment of like a longer bit, but in the sake of time, I'm kind of cutting it a bit short. Iron Bull was very clear at the start of the game that the Qunari have little concept of love or marriage under the Qun. The second, sorry, there's a typo here, and I'm trying to like figure out what the best way to put it is. The second half of the romance, where you make clear to Iron Bull that you want more than just sex, is great. To me, it feels like you're giving him something, actual love, that he never knew that he wanted or was missing under the Qun. From that moment onward, Iron Bull's romance does feel like there is some true, in quotes, love between the two of you. The second thing I enjoyed about him is that it fills this unique role that we haven't seen before, which is just kind of like he's losing faith in the Qun, is what they're saying. And that's kind of a unique take that we haven't seen before. And I think those are there's actually a couple comments that said what I'm about to say. So I know I'm not crazy with this. I think that was supposed to be the take for Iron Man.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was well executed.
Right.
And I don't think it really worked out very well. And it's like it almost to the point where like a lot of people missed it, and like I almost would argue that it's like barely there, to the point of like not even being there. Like I just it felt like it needed like maybe one or two more cutscenes where like there was a really good heart to heart. Like I just felt like it didn't really have a lot of that. Now people obviously disagree with me, and that's fine. But I at least want to give that one shout out that like there are people there that think there is, or believe that there is depth to Iron Bull. I just it didn't click for me, and or you, Jordan, I think either. There was another person saying like, you guys just don't know the BDSM community. That's true. We don't. I don't particularly enjoy being tied up or tying people up. I mean, it's way more complicated than I know, so I'm being simplifying it. But yeah, that's fair. And I guess it's, you see like a sub community you're part of, and it's like represented a thing. You're like, hey, that's really neat. I really like that, and that's fine. But like, I think we touched on this earlier. This is our personal ranking. Our party, we get to do what we want. You know what I mean? So like, he gets that too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, look, yeah. I think that there's a lot of good points to be made about Bull, obviously. And I think that, like, maybe it's better that they had the representation for the BDSM community than not. I still don't think that it was necessarily the best. But maybe it's better that that's in there or not. And also to the comments of like, maybe he's getting something for the first time, like real love. Like, I don't know. Maybe there is something to be said for like the bit of character growth that he experiences, because I do think it's there to a certain extent. I don't know if it's enough that I want to change my rating, but I appreciate people sort of standing up for Bull, because I do think there's truth in what they're trying to get at, which is that there's meant to be a counterintuitiveness to him, that he's meant to come off as the bro-y sort of like brash guy, but that there's something more underneath. I think that we sort of capture that in our character overall ratings. Like, we rated him fair. Like, I rated him a 5, you rated him a 4, and I think we even talked about it on the episode, that we were going to give him the credit there and sort of take it away from the other categories like execution. Conceptually, Iron Bull is actually a very, very interesting character. I just don't think that they landed that character as well as they could have. I kind of still feel that way. It's just maybe are the scores representative of that is what I'm really trying to look. And especially I have to look at it based on, look, here's the thing. I'm going to change some of my scores here based on the curve.
All right. Where are we looking at?
I gave Talis a 2 on execution, and I've also given Iron Bull a 2 on execution, and that just can't exist. So okay. Iron Bull's going up to a 3.
Iron Bull going... Okay, so you matched what I did then.
Yeah, you gave him a 3 also, and I don't... I don't think that that's... And then I gave him a 2 on the romance.
I'm stubborn about my 2, so...
So for me, is he the worst romance in all of Dragon Age?
Is that what? Oh yeah, that would be. Yeah, you gave Sebastian a 3, boy.
Because you talked me into it. I was going to give him a 2, and no, that's Sebastian.
No, I gave Sebastian a 1.
Zevran. I thought it was you talked me up on Zevran a pretty good amount. Like, I think I gave Zevran a 4 on romance because you mentioned the thing about how they're the only one that stays with the warden and all that other stuff. So I gave Sebastian a 3, and
I don't even know
Sebastian
why.
is what do you say? You don't want to be Andraste's side bitch.
Say side bitch. Yeah, that's the quote now.
Yeah, I don't think he's worse than Sebastian. I'd say he's probably all right. So I go up to a 3 on Iron Bull for me. You're fine. You're firm with your 2. I respect that. I'm gonna go up to a 3 on Bull.
Okay. All right. I do have to question why you have Sebastian as a 3 and not just like in my opinion, you don't rank Iron Bull higher, you rank Sebastian lower, but I'm not
I know.
This is you.
Yeah, we talked about this where like I thought it was, I thought that the element of there being a chase character was interesting, but then your counterpoint, which is valid, which is that they didn't really do anything with the idea of it. They just kind of didn't have a culmination, we've already said that on that episode, but I think that was the distinction. And holy crap, the audience they were kind of in between the both of us, but 1.9 I think is what they averaged on it.
Yeah. I think that now I'm not going to do an on-the-fly calculation because there's like math I have to like go input here. I think that might drop Iron Bull to maybe out of the top 5, maybe, or it might just barely be there.
As far as differences?
As far as differences. Yeah. Now Bethany would be Apparently, they liked Bethany a lot more than we did, even though everyone called her boring.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny, some of the comments and some of the differences, like somehow they... Well, okay, the Runic Golem got weirdly high because we ranked a 0 and they weren't able to rank a 0. So I actually think we mostly got that one right, but that was a fault in the data collection.
Yep. Okay.
Trying to think of like other categories here. Let's just go over to like the actual ranking. So the viewer ranking, the top 3 was Morgan, Varric, Dorian, and we did Morgan, Aveline, Solus.
Solus is number 4 on the audience rating, 0.2, just barely underneath Dorian, and then Aveline rounds out the top 5 for the audience.
Yeah, our Dorian, much lower.
Which is crazy, because we really like Dorian.
Yeah, I don't actually know how that happened.
They really like Dorian.
Yeah, they really like Dorian. An interesting thing of, like, character comebacks. What was the best version of the characters that, like, had come back? So there's Varric, Anders, Dog, and Ogren. They're the ones that made 2 appearances. The best Varric is Dragon Age 2 Varric. Best Anders, Dragon Age 2 Anders, voted by you guys, not us. Best Dog is apparently in Witch Hunt, but just barely. It was almost equal. And then best Ogren is in Awakening. So...
Very interesting.
Yeah, which I would mostly agree with those except for Dog. I think, like, maybe he just got bumped up in Witch Hunt because he was a familiar character. Like, I actually don't know what happened there. Yeah, overall, we were much nicer on Blackwall. The ones that we rated higher were Blackwall, Morgan, and Aveline. And Jarek Dace, of all people, apparently we were just more forgiving for him than everyone else. Like, a lot of people... Yeah, shout out to the one person who, like, went through, like, all of the DLC carriages and just had, like, this, like, there's a specific name for it, and I forget what it is, but it's, like, an emoji, but made out of, like, special characters that just, like, look like a shrug. So, like, I don't know, man. That one brought me some joy. But yeah, I think for the most part, though, like, I do want to, at least in the video for this, I don't know if we'll be able to put this on the feed for podcasts. I do want to, like, have you guys be able to see the data. That way, like, you guys can, like, look at what we're looking at. But after that, like, Jordan, is there anything here that you want to talk about specifically that we haven't yet?
No, I mean, it's not necessarily worth going through the bottom 5, but, you know, Brogan Dace, Silas, Jarek Dace, we already mentioned, Runic Golem. For the audience, yeah. I mean, they kind of, you know, they were fairly close to us on Talis. Nobody really loved Talis. There were some defenders. As you mentioned.
Yeah.
The romance, including romance, the viewers did have Solus, and it was Morgan, Dorian, Solus, and then Alistair. So Alistair takes a real jump up when you rank total with romance.
Yeah, we both had the same top 3. It's just we put Solus higher than Dorian.
That's right.
And like, we only had a point difference, and the audience only had a, like, 0.4 difference in between the 2.
Yeah, so it's about the same.
So it was extremely close. And then everyone hates Sebastian. Like, which, interesting, so we put Sarah as, like, kind of mid to low in romance. Sarah was the second worst romance from the viewers.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really...
She might have had the biggest jump in the romance.
It's interesting. Yeah. That is something to be said. Blackwall is like, man, like, we really were much kinder to Blackwall overall.
Yeah, that one I'm kind of like wondering.
That's probably me bumping him up. Like, I'm here to rep for Blackwall. Yeah. I think he's an everyman. I appreciate it.
I liked it well enough. I just... Would I put it over Alistair in general? And I don't know if I would. But apparently our ranking did that. So
is this the time to amend it? Is that what you're saying, or are you just wondering about it?
What did I let me look what we did. What did I rank him? Blackwall, I put a 5 for the romance. Alistair, I put a 4 for the romance. Okay, I did this to myself then. So
what didn't you like about the Alistair? Because we both ranked him a 4.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Apparently,
is that your
ranked
canon
Alistair...
romance?
Yeah, it is. Why did I rank Severin higher than the Alistair romance? Pass, Caitie. What did you do?
Well, you had the whole spiel where you were convincing me of Zevran, and maybe that was it.
Yeah. Maybe I was just overzealous. But I do like I am into the fact that he like stays with the warden.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I don't want to give Zevran a lower. I think I just want to give Alistair a higher.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't want to give him a 6. I think I'm going to go with a 5.
Okay.
I'll go with that 5. But going back to Blackwall. I might do a 4.
Oh, how dare you. It's the same thing as you said. It's the same thing as Solus, but they did Solus better.
I mean, yeah. Do I really? Am I just? You know what? I'm going to keep the 5. I'm going to keep the 5. I'm keeping it. Because as I'm remembering back, I did like it. It was the Solus romance, but worse. I mean, there's differences. Okay, I'm gonna keep the 5. But I did want to raise up Alistair.
Also, it's not like Avelaine's in the top 5 for the audience. The audience clearly loves Aveline, but she's still in the top 3 of our differences over theirs. Because we have her second, and like there's I don't know. To me, there's a big difference between 5th and 2nd. Do you know what I mean? Like Morrigan is still clearly the highest one, but and we have Varric from DA2 as 5th, and they have Varric 2nd. So I guess we kind of swapped them.
Yeah, I guess, but I know this is our ranking, and I'm one half of this. I would put Aveline there and put Varric there, so like this matches my inner thoughts on the series. Yeah. But like I understand it, like other people aren't like that.
I would just say too, overall, and maybe this is like sort of on the category of wrap up thoughts, but I love everything that people put. Like if there's one thing that I actually want people to take away from this episode is like, holy crap, like it's really impressive that people wrote this much. I know Caitie's probably thinking, my God, why did everyone write so much? But good on you all for your arguments. Like obviously we're subjective. This part of this was wanting to know what the audience thought. But like even if we don't, agree with your take of it, like I agree with the fact that you guys have your take, if that makes sense. I really wanted that. I wanted to hear what other people thought of it. And we're still probably going to stick to our opinions. Like we've only really changed a couple of ratings here, but the idea is like, there really is no right or wrong thing with any of these characters. Like I said about Zevran in particular, which is that if you have a particular read on that character that's thoughtful, that kind of does actually make the character better, at least for you. And that's really the main thing, which is like thoughtfulness about these characters. And clearly many people have put a lot of thought into why they like these characters. And I think that's inarguable. If you've really put a lot of thought into it, then it's kind of true. If we're talking about fictional characters, it's all subjective.
Yeah. I do want to give, we talked about this before the show, and I was like giving you a rundown of the data, and like we said we wanted to come back to it. So quickly doing that. A lot of people like wrote up very like intense and personal things in these write-ups, which I was not expecting that at all. Like, the worst I was expecting was someone like really annoying with their opinions, but like some people like in like even characters that you wouldn't even expect. Like I think there was one on like Meryl, where like these characters spoke to someone so hard that in their defense of the character, like it was like crucial for these people to also bring up like intimate details of their lives to explain why this character is so good and how it affected them. Like you kind of expect that for things like, Dorian or like Iron Bull was another one that we had. Like Cole. But there was like some on characters that like there was a bunch of them. So I guess like we didn't read any on the show because like I just kind of felt weird like saying all that personal information out there, which is also why we're not going to make the written data public. That's really just for me. But we will make the numbers public. But like, yeah, I guess just thank you for those people who wrote up quite a long novel to explain those things. I did read them. Jordan, like, I mean, it's 171 pages. I don't expect him to read all of these. So, But I did read pretty much every comment. It did take a while. But yeah, I just thought it was, I honestly was not expecting, like, And it was multiple people giving me their life stories via Google Forms.
I think it's one of the most like oddly compelling, and I'm not surprised by it anymore, but certainly as long as we've been doing the show, it's at the beginning it was kind of surprising to me that is almost maybe not universal, but it's a very broadly shared take or experience that people relate very personally to these stories and these characters. And not even just like you could say that around a lot of different popular pieces of media, but I mean like some people have found a frame of reference that helps them make peace with something, or like it's really shaped some of their worldviews in a way that they feel is like for the better and positive, and like that's really quite astounding that exists and that people are willing to share it. I think it's a really cool thing.
I think with that's all I want to say about Dragon Age. We'll get to Mass Effect later. So yeah, I guess that's where we ended today.
Yeah, we'll be doing a Mass Effect episode like this one. We'll compile all of the results and talk about it and maybe change some scores, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll be doing that a little bit later.
Yeah, I think the next episode might be late too because you're doing some stuff and I might be doing some stuff. So like there might be some time in between those two episodes, and even longer if like the world explodes in Bioware or something. And so we want to talk about that first, but we will get to it.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. Hey, real quick at the end, save Seralt.
Yes.
Do you want to like give a shout out for that? Because I think you talked about it on the last episode, didn't you? Or one of them?
Oh, we did. It was yesterday. And it was kind of like a one-day thing, but like if you still want to use the hashtag, that's for it.
Yeah, well, I just want to say like it was I know you talked about it and everything, but I was like, wow, this like really ruled the timeline for a while there, and it was really nice to see like people were really passionate about it, and also, folks like myself who weren't like on the crusade or anything were like, "Oh, wow, there's a lot of passion around this. This is really interesting."
Yeah, it's for people not in the know. The Last Court is a Dragon Age like mini text game made by Veil-Ep Games that lived on the keep for many, many, many years. But it was actually taken down in November of 2020. And like these two very wonderful people. I actually think there might be more on the team, but I've only been talking to Dan and Felisan. Shout out to them. They were able to capture screenshots of most of the game. I think they said it was like 99% of it. They were only missing like one or two instances, and which is wonderful that they have that. However, just due to the nature of the game, having screenshots of everything is incredibly chaotic and is kind of hard to read. And obviously, like ideally, when you try to archive these things, you want something that is also playable. So the Save Seralt hashtag was trying to get Bioware or Veil-Ep to just see like there is interest in like saving this. Obviously a re-release, a downloadable re-release would be like ideal. That way like we as fans can archive it and Bioware doesn't have to touch it anymore. Or like a script or something with like, guidelines of like, okay, if you click this, it leads to this. And like that could be easily passed around. That would be really nice. It's just something that we can archive for the future, because at the moment this is the only, minus the Dragon Age theme park ride, which you fucking me apparently, but this
is a fantastic video, by the way. This is like, I don't know how, I can't remember how long it was, but I'm just like, I didn't expect to be so riveted all the way through. I'm like, what happens next with the fucking ride? You're like a fucking detective. You're like out there sleuthing stuff.
Oh, there's a vague update on that. Hold on, let's real quick. The Save Seralt initiative was to just get it to be archived. There was something else I wanted to say. Fuck, what was it? We wanted to be archived. That's really our only goal. And it's the only piece of Lost Dragon Age media.
The only thing that's canon that's just not going to be available.
Yeah, which kind of sucks. And it's like, I think one thing that I want to really try for Dragon Age is to make it extremely accessible, so there's no gatekeeping. Because that bothers me.
Yeah.
And with Lost Media, there's now going to be the people who played and the people who haven't, rather than people who haven't yet and people who did. So, and that kind of like, I don't know. I just don't want that to be the case. So, yeah, that was the initiative. So in the video I did on the Dragon Age theme park ride, I mentioned that like I'm giving up the search, and then like as soon as I posted that, and like, you know what, I never really followed up very well on that Riva Digital line of thinking, and so there I was like an hour of research going into Riva Digital. I did actually end up finding a man who was who listed on his resume the lead animator for very specifically the pre-ride movie of the Dragon Age ride. Which is like, that's one of the things we're really missing. And I ended up emailing him, and I haven't gotten a response back. So I guess that's the update to the video where I emailed that guy and I got no response. Like literally everyone else except for SimWorks. So shout out to SimWorks for being literally the only company minus Bioware who like gives a damn. Yeah. This episode was all over the place.
It sure was. But I mean, it was a fun episode.
Yeah. I guess with that, Jordan, let's get rid of this. Where can they find
Yep, folks can find me at The Exalted March on YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, and Twitter. Caitie, where can the folks find you?
You can find me as Ghildirthalen on YouTube and Twitter. And if you remember old episodes of me saying other social medias, I forgot them. They don't exist anymore. So don't worry about it. And with that, everyone, Dara Sherrill.